Hello, Canucks fans. Welcome back to another episode of Canucks Conversation, brought to you by Bet365. We're coming to you from the Pacific Toyota Dealer Studios. Visit shoptoyota.ca or visit your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. My name is Dave Woodrelli. I am joined by Harman Dial. We've already got it in the chat. Two Wolf brothers, regular listener of the show. What if the Canucks are the 2019 Blues? Harm, get that ready for your stat in the day. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. The Vancouver Canucks are on a 4-game win streak heading into Philly. The Flyers hate to see the Canucks coming right now, boy. Let me tell you, holy smokes, this Canucks team, Harm. Bit of a PDO bender, but a lot of just fun stuff going on. And we had an awesome time at Greta. You were there for our watch party. The Canucks beat the Boston Bruins. They beat the Islanders the night before. Just good vibes around the Canucks right now. It's been a while since we could say that.
Yeah, it's funny because we were at the watch party, and even though they were down in the second period, and even though the Canucks were being outplayed by decent amount when you looked at the shot numbers, the scoring chance numbers, I turned to you at one point at the watch party and said, "There's no way the Canucks aren't winning this game. They're gonna win this fourth one in a row." I could just feel it. Even the bounces that they were getting, the ones that didn't even count, where Hronek takes a point shot, it bounces off two players, and then it's gloved in by Marcus Pettersson, and you're wondering how the hell did that pinball in? Even though that one didn't end up counting, you just knew it was one of those nights where the Canucks were going to find a way somehow, some way, with some of the youth contributions they've been getting, the overall vibes around this team being refreshed, and they apparently forgot the tank back at Rogers Arena. Couldn't pack that on the East Coast trip, so that'll have to wait until they get back to home ice.
We're gonna do some standings math later, but the quick thing just to point out is that, and I pointed this out to you at the watch party, we were talking about it as well, was the Canucks are winning, but so is everyone else. So are all these other bad teams that they were down in the bottom of the standings with. We'll break all that down a little bit later. But on the games, I wanted to quickly say, you had Thatcher Demko, stellar again, Friday night. Canucks handily beat the Islanders 4-1. Kiefer Sherwood scores a hat trick, including an empty netter. But it was a really good game, really strong performance from them against the Islanders. And then on Saturday, you get Linus Karlsson, and Linus Karlsson, by the way, leading the Canucks in so many offensive categories at even strength now this season. That we'll talk about Linus Karlsson a lot, I'm sure. And then Liam Ogrren as well scores. He's got 2 goals in 3 games here in his last 3 games, and he is looking really, really good. He's looking like kind of again, he was a mystery box when the Canucks acquired him. It was, okay, he had high draft pedigree, but what does that actually mean at this juncture? Is he going to go on? We've seen lots of guys drafted in the first round that go on to be nothing. But we said with Liam Ogrren, it's a pretty high floor, was kind of the conversation we were having, but maybe there's more to give there offensively. My goodness, the dude looked confident with that shootout move he pulled off going to the backhand. Like that is a high skill play that he made to give them the shootout victory. Really like Liam Ogren's game, really like Linus Karlsson's game, but let's start on Ogrren specifically, his game on Saturday night.
Yeah, so Ogren's interesting because it isn't just the pedigree he's had. Last year as a 20-year-old in the AHL, his first season in North America, he had 37 points in 41 games, which is the type of track record that doesn't guarantee you're going to become an impact NHLer, but you're trending in the right direction. That's a positive sign. So up until this season, he already was trending in the right direction. It isn't a case of, former first round pick, but since then it's been a few years that he stagnated. And now only since coming to Vancouver, he's turned it on. It's been all right. Up until training camp of this year, he was trending toward becoming an impact player in the Minnesota Wild based on that thought that he could be potentially an immediate top 9 difference maker for them out of the gate. Now, it was a tough first quarter of the season for him. We saw the lack of production where in Minnesota, 0 points in 18 games, had a short stint back down with Iowa in the American League. However, a couple of times I remember watching Wild Avs 3 weeks ago, and Ogrren, just because of his physical tools, his speed, his size, his reach, his forechecking, he stood out to you by the eye. And it was strange to contrast that to the lack of production. And so the takeaway I had there was, all right, maybe the offense, we'll have to see whether that materializes or not. But regardless, even if it doesn't, I feel pretty confident that he's got a high floor as a bottom six NHL contributor just because of the other attributes. And to now see him rewarded with the production as well has been really encouraging. It's not just the production as well, right? He's fast, both on the forecheck and on the back check. A couple times where you see him tracking back on plays, breaking them up defensively. And it's so interesting because Ogrren, according to Hockey DB, he's only listed at 6 feet, 187 pounds, but he seems a lot sturdier than that on the puck. He seems stronger in battles. And the NHL official Twitter account had tweeted out a picture from this past summer where it was an Ogrren summer pick where he just looks jacked. And he stands out to me as like some players are listed at certain weight, but they feel stockier, they feel heavier, they're able to win more battles than they should. Ogrren stands out to me as, even though he's average size on paper, his physicality and strength is a legitimate asset of his game. And then you pair that with him having a pretty heavy shot and some of the silky smooth hands he showed on the shootout goal. Yeah, it's really encouraging to see. And not just him, but that line as a whole, where the line blender was out a little bit towards the third period, but for large stretches of the early part, he was on a line with Sassone and Linus Karlsson, and those guys were just dogs all over the Bruins, controlling pucks in the offensive zone, little give and go plays. I loved seeing what they were able to do on Saturday evening.
Okay, so we've got a couple follow-up questions about us talking about Liam Ogrren, and the first one was from Walk, who said, do you guys think Ogrren is currently better than Lekkerimäki? And then there was another one that said, from Dylan McDonald, he said, do we value Lek more than Ogrren? I mean, look, as the president of the Jonathan Lekkerimäki fan club as of this year, I take Ogren's baseline game more, and I think that makes him quote unquote better. Does Lekkerimäki have a higher upside, like higher potential? I mean, he has a shot that Ogrren doesn't have. Ogrren can bring a lot offensively, and he has potential, but I'd say right now Ogrren is the better player. Like if both players just stop developing today, Ogrren would have the better NHL career.
Yeah, the floor is higher with him, and the thing with Ogrren is he has a backup game where that's what a lot of NHL coaches look for, is if you're not scoring, are you able to contribute in other ways? And you know you're going to get that with Ogrren, just how tenacious he is, the dogged work ethic, him looking reliable defensively. Whereas for Lekkerimäki, if he's not scoring, even though he's not hurting you defensively, because I actually think that he's adapted to the NHL better than expected from that perspective, he is still a small, undersized winger who isn't going to be able to contribute a whole lot else outside of what he can do offensively. I agree that here's the thing, Lekkerimäki wasn't able to have a normal summer this past offseason because of Abbotsford's late run and him just also presumably being like his body catching up after, like, you go from Sweden to North America, and let's remember that last year was Lekkerimäki's first full season in the AHL. It's a massive adjustment in terms of the workload, the volume of games. And I don't think he needed a massive summer, right? He's the kind of player that, especially with the skating, that's the one thing I'm looking for is if he can add an explosive burst to his acceleration, that's going to make him more dynamic, carrying pucks through the neutral zone. It's going to allow him to be a more effective play driver offensively. That's what you're looking for Lekkerimäki to do. He wasn't able to do it last offseason. I can understand the circumstances of why, but if he's able to just have one of those summers next offseason, then he could come into training camp next year and look like a completely different player. And he's also got the playmaking vision to be a power play one guy. So the ceiling remains high on Lekkerimäki, and higher as a pure goal scorer. But with the way Ogrren is looking so far, he looks more projectable right now at the NHL level.
We got a few super chats here. Let's get to them. The first one's from Elfrin. Good to see Elfrin over the weekend. He said, Quads and Harm, scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most likely, that chances of the Canucks going 5-0 since the Hughes trade after tonight's game. The Wild are 4-1 since. People pointing out they had their first loss in the Quinn Hughes era against the Colorado Avalanche. Tough to beat the Avs, obviously, but yeah, the Wild are 4-1. Chances the Canucks go 5-0. They're slight underdogs according to Bet365. We'll get to our bet of the day later, but I'm gonna give it a 6. Give me a 6. The vibes are good. The vibes are good around this one. Give me a 6. Put me down for a 6 out of 10. Do you want to give a guess?
Yeah, I was gonna say 6 or a 7.
Nice. Let's go. All right. Condones.
Oh man, I didn't even. I
Condones
fell right into that.
We got a super chat for $20 from Condones who said, so was it injuries all along? Because it's not like they've played bad every game that they lost. There were games we deserved to win but didn't. Are they buying into Foot's plans or is it just luck right now? Harm, you're about to tell me some crazy crap about how the PDO is super high with this team right now. And I know it is. But I'm here to also say at least that there were games that we were talking about before this trade where we said they deserved to win, but they didn't. And now maybe these aren't the most deserving wins, but they've gotten it done and they found a way to get the win. And there's something to be said about that. And they've defended better in front of their goaltender. Kevin Lankinen was the litmus test on that, right? Well, Demko's playing out of his mind. And then people were saying, well, actually, they're defending a little bit better in front of him. And in my head, at least, I was saying, well, let's see when Kevin Lankinen's in goal. Let's see how it goes. And he played really well against the Boston Bruins as well. So answer Condone's question in the chat, $20 super chat. We appreciate it. He said, so was it injuries all along? Are they buying into Foot's plans? What is it now?
I don't think it's just as simple as injuries. Obviously, getting Thatcher Demko back is massive. And if he's healthy for the rest of the year, then yeah, that's a risk factor for Team Tank. However, a few things stand out to me. First, the weight off the group's shoulders of the Quinn Hughes trade finally happening. Now you're free. I think as a team, you've ripped the Band-Aid off, and you've got 3 players in Liam Ogrren and Rossi that are genuinely excited to be here. Like genuinely, they're excited for the opportunity. They're bringing good vibes, and as a group, you have no pressure expectations on you. You're just going out and playing, and especially when you're on the road, I think it's a great way to integrate newer players as well, because when you're at home, players have other things going on. They've got their families. You're literally living at home. Whereas when you're on the road, you've got so much free time to kill, and that means extra bonding time for teammates, just shooting the breeze, going out for dinners, and you're able to bond and come together. So when you have all these changes going on, you're integrating new guys. I imagine it's pretty fun for those guys right now to, on the road, have that integration process. And again, it's sort of like if you've got a relationship that you can sense is ending, sometimes the last couple of weeks before you've actually pulled the trigger is worse in terms of just the uncertainty versus when the actual breakup happens and you're just able to move on, right? And I think that is a legit thing from a vibes perspective. Secondly, you mentioned it, they've legit improved defensively. Since mid-November, they're around league average in terms of their 5-on-5 defensive metrics, whether you look at shots against, whether you look at expected goals against, and just by the eye test as well. I was noticing in that Boston game, they're not as frenetic in the D zone. They're not chasing like chickens with their heads cut off the way they were early in the season. I think they're protecting the middle better. Now, has it been perfect? No, because even in the Boston game, they still gave up a couple of goals off east-west plays. But there haven't been as many egregious breakdowns where early in the year, how many times did we see 2 Canuck players chasing one guy behind the net and the slot just left wide open?
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
It's only been a couple games that I've noticed it, so I need to see it for a bit longer, but the whiteboard's coming out here. I don't even need the whiteboard, but basically what I'm really going to say is that I have a theory that they've changed the system. The D-zone system.
Yeah.
I think they've changed it. And it's just a theory because I haven't seen it enough. And maybe it's just like, hey, maybe if we ask, because they're coming back home soon, if I ask Adam Foote about that, maybe he's just going to say, no, we didn't change it. They're just doing it the way we wanted them to. But I would say, and I'm not saying he's for sure going to say that, but when we look at the D zone, and look, I already have it written down from last time. When we look at the D zone, so often what they try to do is they send two guys at the puck carrier, but now it's like that second guy. And maybe this is just a symptom of players understanding it better and not diving in when they don't need to, and staying back. But what I've noticed is that they're still kind of swapping on like, if that makes sense. Like they're still switching. They're still switching to like the modified man on man when the puck goes low. But the second guy, instead of going in, is kind of just like, I don't want to say pretending to, but he's like holding his ground a little bit more in the middle. Like he's being a little more cautious about staying in the middle. I don't know if that's system change. I don't know if that's them just adapting, because honestly, like part of what Foot's defensive zone system was two guys going after the puck carrier, right? And there's a benefit to playing that style. Some other teams do it as well, but it almost feels like there's an emphasis on just like, okay, we don't need to be that aggressive. Now we can go to more of a zone instead of man on man, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I definitely noticed that in the Boston game as well, where there were certain moments where I was thinking, oh, this looks a little bit more like what a zone would look like. This looks a little bit more similar to last year. Now,
and it's almost
I don't
like
think
the
it's
Bruins
entirely...
were waiting. It's almost like the Bruins were waiting for the second guy to jump in.
Yeah, for sure. But them improving defensively is legitimate. And if that holds, then the teams like that, the main thing is how long can that last, right? Because there have been, for example, at the start of November, they had about a 2 or 3 week stretch where they were creating a lot of shots offensively. And we thought, okay, if they start building on this could really result in them being a more potent offensive team than we maybe thought. And then that didn't quite last. Now, this is a little bit different because it's been longer, right? We're talking about since mid-November, so about 5 weeks now. It seems more sustainable. But so long as that stays, that's going to keep them competitive in more games moving forward. And then the other aspect of this winning streak is, there's been some PDO luck, unquestionably. They're shooting almost 16% as a team the last four games, and they've gotten nearly .950 goaltending. That part isn't going to last, but there's nuance to this, right? It's not like I'm saying it's not like they've been controlling 42% of their 5-on-5 shots the last 4 games, brutally getting outplayed, and it's just luck. It's a combination of factors and luck on top that's resulted in them winning these last 4 games.
Okay, I've drawn it out. And for those in the podcast, you're not missing much. But basically what it comes down to is, and Leah in the chat actually pointed out, if they're still switching, it's still a hybrid system. Like I know I call it modified man on man, but a lot of coaches just call it hybrid, which is fine. And it is still a hybrid system. But what you're worried about is the defenseman activating from the point when you're cycling that puck around, and then all of a sudden you have 2 guys chasing in, and then in the middle of the ice you have one defenseman guarding the backdoor tap in, but then this defenseman who's activated has all this space. Yeah, weak side. Yeah, thank you. All that space available, and then that's what's become available in the past when these two guys chase in. Now one of them staying back. It's working. It's working. Whatever it is, it seems like it's working. And I'll also remind you about the other side of my whiteboard, Harm. Can you read that out for the podcast listeners?
Canucks will go over 500 this month.
Harm, the Canucks are 5-4 on the month. Are you aware of that?
I am, and I'll give you props because you made that prediction before they traded to Quinn Hughes.
Once they got that puck hog out of here, I knew it was going to turn around. Yeah, I honestly kind of crazy that we're in this position, right? Like, if you told me at the start of the month when I made that prediction that, oh, and by the way, they're going to trade Quinn Hughes, I probably wouldn't have made the prediction. But as you pointed out, it's worked out so far. Speaking of the standings, speaking of all of this, I want to talk about the standings a bit. Did you have anything that you really wanted to get to from the game? We could save some of it for anyone else. You're going to do stat of the day later as well. Excuse me. I forgot we have another super chat here. This is a good one. This kind of segues perfectly into our next segment. It's from Nico in the chat, who said, how many wins on this win streak would it take to change your mind on Team Tank? Merry Christmas from Australia. Got a listener in Australia. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it. And you set us up perfectly for our next segment. So we appreciate that, Nico. Thank you for that. Or Nick. It's Nick. My bad. We appreciate that, Nick. And if you want to make sure your question or comment gets on the show, hit us with a super chat. Proceeds from our super chat go to the BC Mental Health Foundation, changing the face of mental health and addiction by supporting breakthroughs in care, public understanding, research, and knowledge exchange. All right. I want to talk about the standings and do a little bit of standings math, and I'll rely on you as well a bit here, Harm. But I pointed out at the start of the show, yeah, Canucks are shooting up the standings, right? 4-game win streak, you're going to go up the standings. Canucks are 5 points out of a playoff spot, better record than the Winnipeg Jets. Ever heard of them? Or better,
same record,
same record. Excuse me, exact same record as the Winnipeg Jets. But guess what is a better record than the Jets and then the Canucks? The Calgary Flames. The Nashville Predators, these teams that we were talking about a month ago on the show about like, oh, who could realistically bottom out? We were talking about these two teams as being like, oh, they're probably going to be close. It's going to be, you got to out tank Nashville and Calgary. Well, even with all the winning, those two teams are ahead of the Canucks right now. So in my mind, at least, as somebody who, and let's be honest, who isn't on Team Tank at this point, it's at least made it a lot more enjoyable that it's like, okay, this win streak is happening and it's fun, but it's also not quote unquote ruining the tank.
Yeah, and they woke up today 31st in the NHL by points percentage. So yeah, you could say they're 5 points out, but they're still 31st by points percentage and 30th by raw points, if you want to sort it that way, which tells you that even though they've had this win streak, they're still within striking range of where you would want Team Tank to be in.
They're
it hasn't
1 point out of dead last.
Tank.
They're 1 point out of dead last.
And really, this is more a reflection of how bad the West is this year, where the Utah Mammoth are in a playoff spot right now. Technically, San Jose would be in it by points percentage, but the point being, whether it's San Jose or whether it's Utah, they're on pace for about 84 or 85 points. When does 84 or 85 points ever get you into the postseason?
I know.
So it's wild that the West is in this position, especially because before the season, I was talking about how I felt there were a lot of teams that looked on paper to be playoff caliber, but you look at what's gone wrong for certain teams where for a large chunk, Utah couldn't get saves, and then now they're dealing with no Logan Cooley, and plus their young guys haven't taken the pun intended mammoth leap that you thought maybe the Ducks the Ducks young players did, or the Blackhawks young players did, or more specifically Connor Bedard. Then you go through St. Louis, right, where for the first third of the season, their goaltending was so brutal, and almost single-handedly that's tanked their ability to be a 90 to 100 point team the way a lot of us expected they would be. The Winnipeg Jets, right? I think we expected a bit of a step back for them with no Nikolai Ehlers, and they dealt with early injuries to guys like Sandberg and Lowry and Perfetti for a bit. I understand that, but still, I didn't expect they were going to be 15, 17, and 3 after being one of the top teams in the Western Conference in the regular season last year and the year before. So it's been a strange year in the West. Everything's so compressed, and to me, I'm still very much on Team Tank. Obviously, I'm not going to change that tune after four wins. I'm not actively not like, oh shucks, I can't believe they won these 4 games and this is so bad. I'm not angry about it, obviously, because they're still within striking distance of the bottom. But as much as we're saying 4 or 5 points out of a playoff race, you still also got to leapfrog about 7 teams.
Harm, grade this take, okay? At the start of the show, someone asked, is this Canucks team the 2019 Blues? And I think we both agree they're not.
Come on.
We both agree they're not. No, hang on. Okay. We both agree they're not. Can this team be the 23-24 Canucks?
What are you asking about? But what do you mean by that?
Can this team be the 23-24 Canucks? They're not going to win the Pacific. Obviously, at this point, we know they're not going to win the Pacific.
Oh, the 23-24.
Yeah. Isn't that what I said?
Yeah. So, okay.
So I'm saying, okay. Can they get solid shooting luck, good goaltending, high end their way into the playoffs and beat their first round opponent?
No.
No.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
No, not happening.
Okay.
Well, that team had 6 All-Stars.
Yeah.
Uh, who's the All-Star in this team? Come on, it's been 4 games. Could they be the question is, could they be last year's Calgary Flames, where they're hanging around the playoff race? I'm being serious, and I don't mean that as any form of disrespect, right?
Yep.
Where
Yep.
last year's Flames were a plucky team. They were competitive because they found a decent defensive floor. The vibes were great. You had some veterans that wanted to be there. You also had some of their young guys like Matt Coronado making an impact. Great goaltending with Dustin Wolf. He was another one of the young guys that took a massive step, and they hung around the playoff race until the very end. That's the question.
Go Calgary Flames hockey team.
And honestly, this is where it's tricky, right? Because as much as we say, as much as the Flames were a feel-good story last year, at the end of the day, where did they draft?
Yeah.
I want to look it up. It's got to be somewhere in the middle of the first. Oh my good. Is this true? Was this their own pick? They drafted 18th.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I
remember some Flames fans were upset because they wanted Tijagin, right? They wanted to move up in the draft, and they drafted low. Was that last year?
Well,
I don't
again,
remember.
that was 24. So
Right,
that's
but same problem, because like they didn't have a high enough pick when Iginla came around, and then last year, yes, they.
Yeah, and that year they were 9th.
Wow, the Flames drafted even lower than I expected. But anyway, the point being, I don't want to see the Canucks have a mid-teens pick, because even though it'd be a good story in the short term of, presumably you'd have some of the young guys making impact and good vibes around the team, for the big picture, for the Canucks to get back to the stage where in 4 or 5 years we view them as they've got the pieces to have a legit Stanley Cup window, they're going to need some elite talent. And especially when you look at the top of this year's draft class, the first 5 or 6 picks, that's where you're most likely to get that elite talent. And that to me matters more than having a fun second half.
Okay, do you know who owned the Flames pick?
Who?
It was the Islanders. They drafted Eklund because originally.
Right. Okay. I was going to say the math seemed weird on that one.
Flames traded it. Yeah. The Flames traded their first round pick in 2025 in August of 2022 with Sean Monahan to the Montreal Canadiens. They did it.
Okay.
3 years out, and then they would have picked 16th, but they gave it away in the Monahan trade.
Yes, and then Montreal used that pick in.
Yep.
Was that?
I don't remember
when. Was it the Dobson trade? I don't remember if that happened before.
It was.
It would have had to be the Dobson trade. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So who are the real Canucks? It's going to be a question.
Well, also, this is the other issue is then you get to the point where I don't have faith that this organization would sell.
Oh no, don't even say that.
How can that not be a legit? We literally went through this last year. This isn't hypothetical. They literally did this last year where they were 8th or 9th in the West, fluctuating the week of the trade deadline, and they hung on to all their pending UFAs.
You know what they didn't do last year, Harm? Announce 3 weeks into the season that they're open for business and that they're going to trade all their UFAs.
You don't think that this organization would get hyped by a winning streak and would quickly change their tune? Now, not at this stage, obviously, because again, they're still at the bottom. But if this continues for another month, which again, to be clear, I expect them to come back down to earth because there is a PDO element to this. But if we got to 2 weeks out of the trade deadline and there's still 2 or 3 points out of a playoff spot, do you think Francesco Aquilini is going to be thrilled about the idea of selling players off this team when they're within the striking distance of a playoff spot?
If he's on board with the rebuild, he is.
I don't know, man. I can only judge this organization based on their decisions and their actions, their behavior. And you go back to last year, and you can say, sure, they were 8th or 9th, but also they had a minus 18 goal differential, and they had just traded JT Miller away, so you knew you weren't going to accomplish anything major that year. Even though they were flirting right around the playoff bar, you and I, everybody knew that this Canucks team isn't going to do any damage this year. They have to sell. And yet they didn't sell any of their pending UFAs.
You would hope, and like, let's not go too long on this because they have to do a lot between now.
They have to do a lot more.
Yeah. But let's close on this by just saying, like, you just have to hope that the idea that, okay, we're gonna rebuild, and hey, like, maybe they look at this rebuild and say, we got some key pieces in Buyam, and you've heard the rest, Rossi, Ogrren, right? And we're gonna have 2 first-round picks this year, and we're gonna keep our own first-round pick the next year. That's all we need to do. You just hope that on top of that, like that alone, and we've already put holes in that last week. We were talking about that, how it's like, okay, like, that's not a rebuild. That's you were accidentally bad, and then you did well in a Quinn Hughes trade, and you tried to turn it around, but you're rebuilding to be in the mushy middle. That's what we talked about last week, so we don't need to rehash that. But you hope with all of that, right? You hope with all of that they don't also add on, oh, and by the way, we're not going to sell our pending UFAs.
I'm telling now, I think 90 to 95% of rational people would know that going on a 4-game winning streak now and perhaps playing well through January and February and just maybe being on the fringes of the race shouldn't be anywhere close to enough reason to pivot from a rebuild plan, especially when you've publicly said rebuild, right? It's the rational, obvious thing to do, but the rational, obvious thing to do last year was to sell, and they didn't do it anyway. So it at least has to be a concern. Not yet, but if this were to continue much longer, I'd at least be a little bit nervous in the back of my mind.
All right. Just before stat of the day and anyone else, I want to tell everybody about our friends at Greta, a great spot for all games, home and away. You can skip the line, not to pay cover on game nights if you're wearing the home team's gear. And of course, there's also the game day specials at Greta, which we took advantage of. I got myself a Greta Smash Burger on Saturday, and it was absolutely delightful. We're going to try to have more watch parties throughout the year. We've got a couple coming up as well, and I think we're going to try to do a pretty quick turnaround for January. We had a really good turnout. We appreciate everybody that came out. It was great to meet some of our listeners. Great to beat Elfrin in table hockey. Sorry, Elfrin. That was a lot of fun. And yeah, make sure you come out to Greta. Even if we're not there, you should be as well. Arcade, bar, street food menu. It's a great spot. Make ready your spot to watch the big game or just to hang out. 50 West Cordova Street is the address. Let the games begin. All right, Harm, you got some numbers for me?
Let's do it with the stat of the day, which is presentation of Uber Eats. Uber Eats is enabling fans to maximize their fandom all season long with exclusive game day deals on the app. From game day eats to paper plates and napkins if you're hosting, to all the ingredients you need to make your favorite game day dip before, during, and after the game. Uber Eats is assisting every fan's hockey experience all season long. Hashtag crave the stats. So this is a little bit related to the conversation we were just having, but Liam Ogrren has averaged 10 minutes and 2 seconds of ice time since coming to the Canucks. Linus Karlsson, who, as you mentioned earlier, is now the 5-on-5 leader in a lot of in a lot of categories for the Canucks. He's still in the 10-ish minute range in terms of average ice time this season. I would like to see this team be proactive about selling their pending UFAs, not from the perspective of even team tank, right? Not even necessarily thinking of the rebuild, but to see what these young players can do in bigger opportunities. I think that's a really important part of whether you want to call it a rebuild or retool. Is you want to know exactly what your guys are. And right now I see a bit of a lineup crunch up front where it isn't just Ogrren and Karlsson that I want to see in higher profile roles, but Nils Höglander was a healthy scratch against Boston. Now, Adam Foote noted that part of the reason they sat him out is because 3 games in 4 nights. He obviously missed a lot of time with injury. Part of it is workload related, but ultimately, even if you wanted to reinsert Höglander, it's not easy to pull a guy out of the lineup right now. There are a lot of players that deserve to be in it right now. Elias Pettersson isn't even in the lineup right now. So for Natu Ratu, who finally drew back in against Boston, once Pettersson comes back, is Ratu going to be rotting away in the press box again? How are you going to make an opportunity and consistent role for him? And to me, this information gathering thing matters, because I think sometimes what happens is towards the very end of the season, when it's clear that you don't have a shot to make the playoffs, that's when you'll see, all right, Jack Rathbone comes up in the All-Canadian division year, or Nikita Hirose comes up. And the challenge with that is you're trying to evaluate these young players in garbage time, essentially, when the games don't really matter. And you've brought this up earlier, where you've had conversations with executives where, because those games don't really matter, you always have to take those performances with a massive heap of salt. And what would happen, right? We'd get hyped about Rathbone, we'd get hyped about Hirose, and then it never translated because it's way too small of a sample and the games don't matter. To me, you've got more than half the season still left. Use that sample size while these games still matter to some degree, because you're technically still in the playoff fight, to see what exactly is Liam Ogrren. What can you do with the consistent top 9 opportunity? Linus Karlsson is putting up really impressive offensive numbers relative to his usage. What could he do with the consistent top 9 opportunity? And even a Nils Höglander, what's his future with the franchise?
Höglander, just to jump in, Harm, it looks like he's going to be a healthy scratch 2 games in a row. Look, he wasn't part of line rushes in Philadelphia this morning, according to Thomas Trance.
He's in his mid-20s now. He's been through a few different coaches during his time in Vancouver. What is he? Where we like a lot of the play driving elements. However, because of his defensive warts, he was in Rick Tocchet's doghouse at times. He was in Bruce Boudreau's doghouse at times. Where does Adam Foote stand on him? And this is the thing too, where even in Natu Ratu, what's his future with the organization? Where even if, let's say, you, for whatever reason, aren't high on Höglander or aren't high on Natu Ratu, and you're looking at those guys as they may not have a long future with this organization, well, then at the bare minimum, what you want to do is at least give those players an opportunity to produce points and build up their trade value, rather than, I don't want to see these guys spending a lot of time in the press box and you're killing their asset value. That's the worst thing you can do, where there's too much of a lineup crunch. They can't get into the lineup. And this is the other thing too, where you may, let's say, have an initial thought or a thesis on, maybe we're not high on Höglander, but until you give him that long runway, how do you know for sure that you're right about that assessment? And I just think you've got a lot of players that are in their early to mid-20s that you need to make decisions on, as far as A, are they part of the franchise moving forward? B, are they, like, how big of a role can they have? And then C, if they're not part of the future, at least ensure that they retain their value as assets, so you can deal them down the road, especially in the case of a Höglander or an Natu Ratu.
100% agree with you. And it's the conversation I was having last week about Jonathan Lekkerimäki. And there's someone in the chat here. Where did it go? Someone in the chat said, trade Sherwood or whoever you have to get Ogrren and Lekkerimäki in the top 6 together. I like it. It's a little extreme, but I like the idea behind it. And you mentioned it. Nils Höglander, not in the lineup again. This is why you need to move some guys in front of him. For sure. You want to give these guys the opportunity. It's like you said, see what you have. This is the perfect time to see what you have. Because guess what? If it doesn't work out, then you know what you have and you can move on. And if it does work out, then great. You might be a playoff team. And you did it with if they sell off their UFAs tomorrow and make the playoffs, nobody's going to really complain. I mean, maybe people will complain, but we're not going to sit here and be like, oh, they didn't rebuild properly. You can't go down to the locker room, especially with young guys, and tell them, hey, don't try. We're trying to lose, guys. That's not their problem. But if you have a bunch of vets, that's your problem. You have a bunch of vets that are trying to win. Go get assets. Go get young assets for those. But if Booyam, if you're Ogrens, if you're Karlssons, these younger guys, and I know Karlsson's 26, but still, you're younger guys, right? If these younger players are the ones that drive you to the playoffs, you're not upset about it. That's actually, and in fact, if that happens, that's actually like an idea of like, oh, maybe the rebuild is over. Maybe the rebuild only needs a couple more pieces because these guys have gotten us to the playoffs by themselves. Now it's a big if. It's a big if. But if you do it with Evander Kane, Kiefer Sherwood, Brock Besser, all these guys, right? Then it's more like, okay, well, we've seen this song and dance before.
100% agree. And especially I look at a guy like Evander Kane or even a David Kampf, right? Where Kampf, credits him, first goal of the season against the New York Islanders. He's been playing well defensively, obviously a part of the PK turnaround. But big picture, he's not part of your future whatsoever.
Yep.
And if you're a team in transition, you should be prioritizing the development of your young players, especially because it's not as if there's a massive performance drop off. If you were to, let's say, move a David Kampf and then make Aatu Ratu an everyday NHL player, I just think that, or an Evander Kane, who, credit to him as well, against Boston, I thought his legs were moving a lot quicker, was more physical. That's how you want to see him play in order to have trade value, and that's part of it too, is he needs to keep playing like this so there is demand for his services. But seeing what Mason Marchment went for, and Marchment wasn't necessarily having the best year, it makes you think, all right, there could be maybe some interest in Evander Kane. I'd like to see on the other side of this holiday freeze. And I don't think the Canucks are actually going to go down this route. But even if you look at Kiefer Sherwood and say, oh, he's way too big a piece to give up on now, this early into the season, at least start going down that route with some of your other UFAs then, because I just don't want to see a lineup logjam where every night Nils Höglander is in the press box, or Aatu Ratu is in the press box, or Liam Ogrren and Linus Karlsson are again only playing 10 to 11 minutes a night.
100% agree with you, man. 100% agree with you. Let's get to anyone else. Anyone else is a presentation of Pacific Toyota Dealers and the Toyota Prius plug-in hybrid, a no-compromise approach to electric vehicles that offers the best of both worlds. You can drive up to 72 kilometers on battery alone, enough to get you from downtown to the rink, the grocery store, and home to recharge. Seamlessly transition from electric mode to the gas engine for a combined range of 962 kilometers. There's no sacrifices when it comes to horsepower or style, with its sleek, low, and wide exterior and sophisticated interior. It's loaded with tech that's actually easy to use. Plug in to recharge at home or at one of the over 2,000 public charge stations in BC alone. And now you can lease a 2026 Prius plug-in hybrid SE from $109 weekly at 3.99% APR for 64 months with $3,300 down. Visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. I got one for you. Anyone else notice how well Evander Kane's playing lately? There were a few moments, specifically on Saturday night, where I turned to you and said, my goodness, he's winning. He's making things happen with his speed. He's moving his feet, and he's making things happen just by being quicker than the opposition. Happened a couple times with Kane. He obviously gets the assist on a nice hustle play and a heads-up play to fling the puck into the middle where Linus Karlsson was ready to redirect it home past Jeremy Swayman. I've really liked what I've seen from Evander Kane these past 2 games. I think Saturday against Boston was his best game as a Canuck. I'll say that. I think that was the best he's looked in a Canucks uniform.
Yeah, he was skating quicker than he has all season. He's got a point now in 3 consecutive games. He was just engaged. That's the best way to describe it. There were last week I was mentioning how I want to see him be more physical. 1 or 2 shifts where, all right, he's throwing his weight around a little bit. And that's the other thing too, is when he's skating quicker, it allows him to close on defensemen quicker. And then now all of a sudden it unlocks him being physical, because sometimes you want a guy to play more aggressive, but if he's too slow, it's an issue of not being able to catch the defenseman or catch the winger on the wall where you're just half a step behind. All of a sudden, I like to see him moving his feet the way he is, and you would hope that if he can continue playing like this, that you get playoff teams watching some of these more recent games and going, all right, we'd like this big physical presence in our lineup come the playoffs, and perhaps the Canucks are in a position where they can get a nice draft pick for him.
Speaking of which, there were a couple trades over the weekend, so I wanted to make sure we mentioned them. Rajcraft asked, what do you think they can get for Kane based on the Philip Deneau and Marchment trades? Mason Marchment, that is. Marchment, the Kraken get a 2nd and a 4th round pick in a return when they traded Ms. Marchman. And what did Denol actually go for?
I believe it was just
straight a second.
Straight
and it was
second.
and it was a second rounder that Montreal got when they acquired Patrick Laine. So it was Columbus's second round pick.
Okay, so assuming the Canucks retain and bring that cap hit down to like 2.65 million, probably looking at like a second or a third, maybe a third and a fourth.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I think trying to predict what exact draft pick he gets is a little bit tricky, just because Kane's a polarizing player, right? Where on one side of the coin, you can make the argument that when he's on and engaged, and we certainly saw this when he was with Edmonton during last year's playoff run, up until the Cup final, where he came unglued a little bit, that he's still a difference maker. He can contribute secondary offense and helps you in the game within the game, just being that intimidating presence, being in guys' faces, just being a power forward, somebody that's a pain in the ass to play against. That would be the argument for why a team might want to, for example, pay a second round pick for him. However, the other side of that coin is that for large stretches, there's a big discrepancy between when Evander Kane is on and when he's off. When he's off, his floor isn't high enough to be serviceable. His floor puts him in a position where he's taking bad penalties, where he is subpar defensively, where he's a liability at times, to be quite frank. Whereas when guys like, let's say, Besser and DeBrusk are struggling right now, right? They're not producing any offense. They are really going through it, but they're at least not actively hurting you. And so that would be a concern, not to mention that some teams, no matter how well Kane would be playing, they wouldn't want to maybe have him be part of their locker room, for example, because of just his history with past teams. So he's a tough player to honestly project. I would say his performance over the next couple of months will dictate just how much demand there likely is. But yeah, you're probably looking at somewhere in the second, third round pick range, provided that he's able to maintain a decent level of performance.
And I stand by it. I told Jacob last week to write it down that the Canucks would be Evander Kane's last NHL team. So I said to write it down, so I have to stand by it. But we'll see. We'll see as we head toward the deadline. And really, just the Canucks want to move their UFAs, or they did want to move their UFAs. I think that's a good question for sure. It's like, hey, are you still looking at moving those UFAs, or are you thinking you want to wait till the deadline? Anyways, did you have anything else that you wanted to get to? It's a game day, so I guess we can wrap up early. But anything else you wanted to get to?
Nice for Kevin Lankinen to have a bounce back in that Boston game. It was it the Morgan Geekie goal where he was swimming and you're thinking, all right, even though Morgan Geekie is a certified sniper now and has a deadly one-timer, terrorizing goalies all around the league, still didn't love the way Lankinen was reacting. And even on some of his other saves, the rebound control looked problematic, where he's leaving pucks right in the slot. It wasn't the cleanest performance, but in the second half of the game, man, he made a lot of saves, and especially in OT, the stop on Charlie McAvoy. It certainly wasn't a pretty performance. It wasn't the most technically sound one. Swimming in the crease a lot, still leaving rebounds out there, not always cleanly catching pucks, but you could see the will. It was a game where he was just straight battling and able to fight his way through. And help the Canucks get through it. And then in the shootout. Did I read this correctly, that he's now got the highest shootout save percentage in NHL history?
Yes, he does. Yeah.
Dude was a wall. That's where he fully locked in and went from, all right, I'm finding it a little bit, but I'm using my pure desperation and will, to now I look technically sound and I'm still just as competitive. He looked unbeatable in that shootout. So massive props to him after a first period and a first half of the game where it looked like we might be talking about Kevin Lankinen in a not so positive way.
Yeah, absolutely. Kevin Lankinen has just been so good in the shootout. And for those that missed it, of course, Canucks win. Kevin Lankinen has now stopped 45 of 51 career shootout attempts. That's crazy. That's absolutely wild. Good for Kevin Lankinen raising his game. Miss L in the chat said 3 out of his 5 wins for Lankinen this year are all in the shootout. That's a crazy stat. That's a wild stat.
Well, and I think in at least 2 of them, he didn't even give up a goal in the shootout. He might have not even given up a shootout goal at all this year that I remember.
He hasn't. He
Yeah.
stopped 14 to 14. They were saying on the broadcast. Yeah, he
So there
stopped
you
all
go.
of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's wild. I've always been a fan of this. Maybe it's hard because you're coming in cold. Thatcher Demko gets you to a shootout. Thatcher Demko's a great goalie. Thatcher, we don't want you breaking your legs in the net there. We're throwing Lankinen in. He's better at it. He's the best of all time. That should be your shootout goalie. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. Just get him in there. See what happens.
I wouldn't want to put a goalie in cold into a shootout.
That's
I know a few soccer teams have tried that, and it usually doesn't work out well. Where their second goalkeeper is just better in a penalty shootout. And generally in soccer, you're only playing a shootout in like a cup match or playoffs, like in an important game. And teams just don't bother risking it with a backup goalie coming in cold after 2 hours not playing.
Silo in the chat pointed out too. Thatcher is also one of the top shootout goalies. Great point. My point was more about, hey, we don't want you hurting yourself by spread eagle
Going
in the
post
crease.
to post,
all that crap. Yeah. All right. I think that's all I have. Anything in the chat? Mr. Brad Lewis. I want to end on this one. He said, "Is the value of Kane, Sherwood, etc., ever going to be higher this season than now? My concern would be that more sellers will emerge and depress value, sell early, cash out. We didn't have the Seattle Kraken as sellers 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago when this memo came out, right?" It's a great point, Brad. It's a really, really good point. And it's why I think Harman and I both agree. Get this business done. Get this business done. Get these younger guys in the lineup. Get them increased opportunities. And we had that conversation a little earlier in case you're late joining us. But yeah, I'm team sell. I'm team sell. Say that. All right. Anything else?
No, I think I'm good.
All right. Let's get to our Bet365 bet of the day. No clue what I picked last week. Jacob, do you know?
I don't remember.
It's okay. It's okay.
Because I was in studio, so I didn't actually write it down.
Did you pick a hockey one? We can look at the slate and look at the scores. Figure this out.
Is it worth it? Is it worth trying to figure out what I did? Someone in the
chat.
chat.
The chat will remind us in about 15 seconds. So,
okay. Are you looking at the slate, Harm?
I believe you did. It was basketball or hockey for sure, but I think you switched to a hockey bet.
Did you bet on the Stars Ducks game?
No.
Sounds familiar.
No, I didn't bet on that game. No.
Okay, I can't remember off the top of my head.
Nick in the chat says Hawks at home they lost. Oh, it was the Atlanta Hawks. No, it was the Atlanta Hawks.
Oh.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
You did go basketball.
Okay, what happened? Did the Hawks win or no? They lost?
It looks like they did not win. I'm
whatever.
going to pull up the actual final score. So from Friday, the Spurs beat them 126-98.
Okay.
Man, not scoring 100 points in a game in the modern NBA is rough. That's that's almost like getting shut out in hockey.
Wemby's letting you down where first he doesn't get you the double-double when you were betting on him, and now that you bet against his team, I'm assuming Wemby played well?
Let's see. I would think so if they put up 126. Wembanyama, he only played 21 minutes, but had 26 points in those 21 minutes. 12 rebounds.
He went off.
Yeah, went off.
Double.
He got the double playing half the game.
Okay. Are you guys ready for today's bet of the day?
Yeah.
New sport. We're going to the gridiron. My Colts in action Monday Night Football against the San Francisco 49ers. We're taking Phillip Rivers over 0.5 rushing yards. He needs one rushing yard for this to hit at plus 205. That's our bet of the day. You can get it. Phillip Rivers over. I think he had -5 rushing yards last game. But anyways, one rushing yard. He needs to go one rushing yard forward. And this hits. We're taking it. Phillip Rivers plus 205. And it'll just make the game so exhilarating to watch, right? If you're watching this game, it's just you just need him to run forward a little bit here. All right, Phillip Rivers, Old Man Rivers, let's go. He's taking us to the promised land. Colts need to win. You can get them or Phillip Rivers over plus 205 at Bet365. That was our bet of the day. Whatever your bet is, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app and get on the game. Use the code NATION at Bet365. Must be 19 plus to play. If you choose to play, please play responsibly. All right, folks, we will close out their fun show today. We'll be back tomorrow. Jeff Patterson can join us. Final show before Christmas tomorrow, so we'll be back to break down tonight's game. So we'll close it out there. For my co-host Harman Dial and our technical producer Jacob Lazar, my name is Dave Gujalli. Thank you so much for this episode of Canucks Conversation.
Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us, folks.